Good Wednesday morning, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Philly Voice Sports Bets. I am Harry Mays. He is Matt Chirico. We're down Aton today as he is heading over to do some TV. If you're a shopper, you might want to tune into QVC or QVC2 and buy something off of Aton as he'll be peddling some products today on television. But we got you until Friday when he'll join us back. And we got a lot to look back to. Matt, a very interesting situation, a sad situation on Monday Night Football. But prior to that Monday night game, a very good day on the college gridiron for yours truly. And I needed to bounce back in the worst way after a horrible weekend. We went 4-0. And this just goes to show you that sometimes when the luck is going against you, it's only a matter of time. You just got to keep on firing. It's going to start coming back around. And boy, did it for me on Monday, starting with that Mississippi State game and the way they covered that game. They had a push, 3-point lead on the last play of the game. And sure enough, Illinois is going for the old hook and lateral situation. And for a while there, you're thinking, wow, they might pull this off.
Yeah.
They got the ball back into the hands of their quarterback, and he throws a duck that ends up getting picked up by Mississippi State and run all the way back for a touchdown to cover the spread.
Yep. I mean, that just goes to show you how many times, we saw that just a few weeks ago go on in the NFL, with the the Las Vegas Raiders.
Right.
So, you never want to put yourself in that type of scenario. So obviously that's a great W. And then obviously the Green Wave as well. They came through for you, Tulane.
Yeah. 16 points in the
W.
final couple of minutes of that game, including a safety, which they needed, and they win it outright by 1. And if you remember, way back a couple of weeks ago when these games were announced, I'm like, Tulane.
Yeah, USC fans cannot be too happy, especially blowing a lead like that. I mean, You put up 28 in the first half. You're probably thinking you're sitting pretty. Tulane's offense isn't necessarily known for that type of explosiveness, and then they come out and just punch you on the chin. I mean, it was a great game to watch.
Yeah, that running back is going to be a stud in the NFL. I think he went for over 200 against USC, and I'll tell you, the quarterback was great for SC. Okay, the Heisman Trophy winner. And I'm glad that he played. It showed me a lot of courage, a lot of guts. He seems to be a really good leader on that team. But if you're a USC fan and you're looking at the way USC has blown these last two games, like going back against Utah in the Pac-12 championship game when they had a lead, and now with Tulane, you got to start saying, hey, Lincoln, I love the offense, but my goodness, go get us some defensive players and a scheme that can actually stop some people in the fourth quarter, for God's sakes. But anyway, then we move on. Actually, there was the LSU game, which, we were basically saying stay away from it because of all the opt-outs. But I said it at the very end, I'm going over. And Aton said, why would you do that with all these? I said, just because I'm doing the opposite. And sure enough, LSU covers the over themselves against Purdue. What a pathetic effort from the Boilermakers, who are getting a new football coach and a whole lot of new players. But LSU, amidst a sex scandal, which I wasn't even aware of until after the game, Matt Chirico, they put up, 56 and cover the over.
I mean, this just seems like these are kids now with nothing to lose. I mean, they're just out there playing for themselves, playing for their futures. So I understand it. I mean, back against the wall, sometimes teams have no choice but to scratch and claw at that point. And obviously on the other side of that, other side of things, you're probably looking at them and underestimating them quite a bit. You're like, they have all this going on. Their heads probably aren't in the game. Obviously the coaching staff is all over the place, not necessarily focused on football. So, I mean, it's just crazy that they were able to come out and put up those types of points.
So that was 3-0. And then we go to Pasadena, the granddaddy of them all, which really, is kind of the granddad that you don't really call as often as you used to, because it's really lost some of its luster, unfortunately, because it's always been one of my favorite games of the New Year holiday. But Penn State against Utah, a good matchup. It's a shame because this is 2 years in a row now that Utah has been in this game and has lost their quarterback. Rising gets hurt. And if he stays in that game, this is an easy over. I had the over 53 in this game, and it was a sweat. And we got lucky at the very end because the backup quarterback finally makes one play down the field and gets them in position where they're actually like, yeah, let's go. Let's try to score. And they score on a little like swing pass. The tight end or the running back, I forget who it was, kind of broke out there all by himself. And it was an easy pitch and catch. And you're like, we got the over.
Yeah, I mean, watching that game and seeing Caleb Rising, just how he was playing, it seemed like he was looking more to scramble. And eventually, in college, with an offensive line going up against a defense like Penn State, you can only get away for so long.
Yeah.
And then after he gets hurt, you still see that offensive line taking a beating. They give up another 4 sacks to their backup quarterback. So just a tough scene. And it looked like Penn State's game off the rip, honestly.
Yeah, and a nice job out of Sean Clifford. He got to say goodbye coming off the field there before the end of the game. And, to the applause of the Penn State faithful. He's been there for a long time, and I know he's been much maligned. But the guy won a lot of football games, and he's a gutty competitor. So props to him, and a lot to look forward to if you're a Penn State fan with all those young players on both sides of the ball going forward. All right, then we go to the Monday night game. And this was one of the most anticipated, forget about Monday night games, anticipated football games on the NFL calendar. And it just so happens it comes towards the end of the year where both teams are battling for the number 1 seed for the division. Cincinnati's case, they're trying to win the division. Buffalo has got it in the bag, but you're trying to get home field along with Kansas City. And Cincinnati goes out to the lead with the opening drive. They just said, we're taking the ball and we're going to go score. And score they did. They go up 7-0. Very impressive. Buffalo gets the ball back. Their drive eventually stalls. They kick a field goal. And then tragedy strikes. And when I saw this happen, I'm watching it because I'm doing a halftime gambling show. So I'm really paying attention to the game. And I saw, Hamlin make this tackle on Higgins, and I'm like, well, that looked kind of normal. I didn't think anything of it. And he gets up, and he's kind of like standing there, almost like clapping his hands. And next thing you know, he falls over backwards like a sack of potatoes. And I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah. I mean, the most concerning part has to be that when he got up, it wasn't even as if there was, you see guys get up from concussions and hard hits like that, and they stumble and they fall. He got up, he was responsive, he was actively clapping, like you were saying, cheering that, they had just made the play, and then to fall and collapse in the way that he did, just incredibly concerning from every end. And you see how the NFL all came together, and everybody is kind of banding around Damar Hamlin, hoping that he's okay. Just definitely the worst thing that I've seen in my lifetime happen on a football field. I mean, we saw Ryan Shazier get hit. That was very ugly, but this is just something uncontrollable, out of anybody's hands, especially T. Higgins. I mean, you have to feel awful for the guy because he was seen after the game in the tunnel, hugging his family, actively crying because, I mean, you can't help but feel sympathy for the guy.
Yeah, you never want to be a part of that in the game at all, much less be in on the play, as a sort of a participant in what goes wrong. I mean, obviously it's not T. Higgins' fault. He wasn't doing anything malicious at all, but yeah, you feel for him too. And hopefully, Hamlin, I understand, according to his family, he's making some strides. He's starting to breathe a little bit more on his own, still in the medically induced coma, but hopefully things recover there as quickly as possible. But the other thing now, to looking at it just from a football standpoint, what does the NFL do? This is why Roger Goodell gets paid what he gets paid, because they got to figure something out here. I don't know that they can just say, let's call it a tie, because both of these teams are in the mix for the one and only bye in the conference. I mean, this bye is the biggest ticket to the Super Bowl that you could get. And if both teams are in the mix with Kansas City here, Buffalo lost to did they lose to Kansas City
prior in the season? I believe so.
Because I know Cincinnati beat Kansas City later in the year, just a couple of weeks ago. But I want to check this to make sure that I get this right, because
October 16th, the Bills won 24-20.
The Bills won. Okay. So both of them have the tiebreaker over the Chiefs, who play Saturday now against the Raiders. But between the two of them, this game could be, and essentially is for home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So what does the NFL do? They've got that bye week where, a team like Cincinnati or Buffalo and the 1 seed wouldn't play, but do they push the playoffs back a week, knowing they've got that week between the Super Bowl and the championship games? I mean, this is a tough spot.
Yeah, I was even hearing rumors of them potentially canceling the Pro Bowl. They've already been, making
Oh,
so
the
many
Pro Bowl.
adjustments to the Pro Bowl.
Oh,
Now they call it
jeez.
basically a flag football game,
Exactly.
featuring some superstars. So they were even considering scrapping that entirely, using that week as an extra buffer week to give guys rest between, then and the Super Bowl. So I'm not sure. It's a very tough situation, across not only the NFL, but then you have, fantasy football leagues and a lot of betting leagues that take place on these types of games, on the results of these games. So
Right.
a big mess all around the sports world.
Now, maybe they just say, hey, we can't logistically move this much stuff. So let's call it a tie between Buffalo and Cincinnati. I don't know that either team would have a problem, and then go to an additional tiebreaker if you have to, on down the line. They've got like 5 or 6 tiebreakers. And some of them, as you get further on down the line, make your head spin, but maybe that's what they end up doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities and just so many different routes you can go when it comes to trying to make something happen, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Roger Goodell has so many options here, and I think that's honestly the problem. There's so many different ways you could go, and especially when it comes to Doug McDermott and Zach Taylor, like they were meeting on the field and they had asked the Bills, they said, "Do you guys want to forfeit this game?" And obviously they said no, because if they were going to play, they were going to try and win for the guy. And I think it was kind of ridiculous that they had given them just 5 minutes after everything had
Well,
happened. They got
apparently
him off
that
the
wasn't
field.
true.
Oh, really?
Apparently that was fake news. Troy Vincent from the league said, I don't know where anybody got that information. That was never dictated to, or communicated to either of the teams. So I don't know where, Fox got that, or Fox, Monday Night Football, ESPN got that information and relayed it through Joe Buck, because I heard it too. And I'm like, what? Wait, 5 minutes?
5 minutes. Yeah,
Are
you
you
just
serious?
got the guy off the field. We haven't even heard an update on him. And they're like, all right, everybody, 5 minutes, and then we're going to get back on. And
Right.
that was really just irresponsible, I think, on the league. And I think Roger Goodell should have just taken control from the start of when things happen and said, listen, until we get a note, like an update on the responsiveness of Hamlin, we're not going to continue this game, and then just temporarily suspend it from there. I mean, holding everybody for 40 minutes before you make a choice just was not logical.
Well, I understand why you do that too, because you've got 65,000 people in the stands. And if you immediately say the game is over, people starting to head for the exits. They had to make sure that all that the emergency people got out of there, out of the parking lots, out, safely, and get him to the hospital before they start having people all over the place. So there, to a degree, I understand it. And I think once you got that underway or taken care of, then you're like, all right, now what are we going to do here? I think probably the best course of action. The teams don't look like they really want to play. The head coaches, were the adults in the room and said, this probably isn't a good idea. Are you with me, Zach Taylor? And Sean McDermott was asking him, and Zach's like, yeah, let's just bail.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Not much else to say about it. Just we're all wishing the best, in this scenario for Damar and his family.
But we got games this weekend, starting on Saturday. Now, Kansas City and the Raiders, obviously a game that Kansas City has to win if they're going to entertain ideas of a bye and the 1 seed. And the Jacksonville game, hosting the Tennessee Titans in a win and you're in scenario in that AFC South. And I understand this is one of your games, Matt Cherico.
It is. Now, I am not going to necessarily be taking the Jaguars straight up, although I do think that they win this game. What I did was I teased the Titans up to 7.5, and then I also took the Seattle Seahawks in a win and at least help, your playoff scenario the best possible way. So I took the Seahawks minus 2.5 in addition to the Titans plus 7.5, and I took those two together at plus 135.
Well, no, wait, is that just an alternate total? Because
just alternate totals for the two. Yep.
Okay, because the line I have is Jacksonville minus 6.5. Is that what you're looking at as well? Okay, all right. So you're not taking essentially just a straight up Jacksonville and cover the number. And I understand, because this whole weekend to me is about trust. Okay, I don't trust the Jacksonville Jaguars yet in a scenario where they're laying almost a touchdown in a game where they have to win. I know they've had a great second half of the season. Kudos to Doug Peterson. He looks like he's got the quarterback on the right track, and that's a good thing, not only for them, but for the NFL. because he's a young talented player that could be a superstar become the next 2 years. But I don't trust him yet. Laying 6.5 at home against Tennessee, who I know is a wounded animal. All right, they're going to start Joshua Dobbs in his second start. Of course, he started the other night against Dallas. Looked okay, not great, but he looked competent. And I think that's what Mike Vrabel saw in his quarterback and said, you know what, in a game that I got to win, he's a way better choice than Malik Willis, who is still lost in the woods right now. But Dobbs will give you a competency at the quarterback position. Derrick Henry, a little bit banged up with his hip, but he's going to go, and he has destroyed Jacksonville in his career. He's averaged over 105 yards per game in 12 games against the Jaguars, 5.5 yards a crack, and 1.3 touchdowns per game against the Jaguars. They're going to lean obviously heavy on him and their defense, and hopefully Dobbs doesn't turn the ball over. Yeah, and that way you stay in the game, and that's why I'm taking Tennessee plus the 6.5. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be good, somewhat low scoring. Jags probably win.
Big rushing game going on right there. I think it's going to be a big battle between Henry and Etienne. They're just going to be going back and forth. And I know Trevor Lawrence is highly touted as a big throwing quarterback, but I really feel like in a win now type of scenario, Doug Peterson's really going to rely on what he knows, and that's his run game. He knows that he has Travis Etienne back there, and he's going to be able to compete with Derrick Henry. He's one of those types of running backs that can workhorse the game and really take things over. So I love that for sure. And I love the Titans to cover the spread in terms of, plus, but I also think they have a good chance to sneak away and win this game outright. So that's why I didn't roll with the Jags. Just like you said, I don't trust them to win that big game quite just yet.
Yeah, and Etienne very good out of the backfield, catching the football with run after the catch scenarios too, and that's always big in a Doug Peterson offense. All right, moving on. I don't know what other games you're looking at. I'll just tell you the Sunday night game that has been flexed: Green Bay and Detroit up in Lambeau Field. A win and you're in scenario, also for a wild card position out of the NFC North is my other game.
Yeah, that's a massive one, and I can't help but agree with you. The whole process this past few weeks has just been Aaron Rodgers in my head. Like, back against the wall, a guy I do not want to see is Aaron Rodgers. With nothing to lose and nobody else around him that he necessarily 100% trusts, he has to take it into his hands, and he just does that. He gets the job done when it needs to be done in that scenario, and so I think that he wins the big game. Ultimately, I'm looking at this one as Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff going at it, and I think you just can't help but bet Aaron Rodgers.
Well, Detroit beat Green Bay 15-9 way back in Week 9, and both teams were way different football teams back then. Neither were very good, and Aaron Rodgers was god-awful in that game. I believe he threw 3 interceptions, and I think all of them, if not 2, but maybe all 3 of them were in the red zone as Green Bay was moving the football, but just couldn't score. A lot's changed since then. Detroit is much improved, but I still don't trust them. I don't have trust yet in a game that they have to win on the road against their rival, who has now sort of picked themselves up off the mat here in these last couple of weeks. Aaron he wasn't trusting his wide receivers at all back in Week 9. I think he's starting to trust a few of them now, and they're starting to play a lot better. And the laying 4.5, I don't like laying 4.5. I'd much rather it be 3. But I think Green Bay wins this by 6 or 7 in another good one on Sunday night.
Yeah, I think you could also look to the over in that one. I think it's going to be pretty high scoring. Not a lot of defense getting played. It's only sitting at 49.5. So I definitely like that one to go over. We haven't seen too many of these primetime games be too high scoring, but I feel like with a lower total of 49.5, we could get in there pretty easily.
Yeah, and that Detroit team, their defense, they give up a lot of points. I mean, they score a lot of points, but they give up a lot of points as well. So probably a pretty good play there. You could see something like maybe 30-27, 31-27, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Detroit has a lot of weapons, and that's where they really thrive. Defensively, they have a good pass rush, but that secondary really hasn't been able to get it done. Everybody thought Jeff Okudah would be taking that next step as an elite cornerback this season. He's kind of fallen off and regressed a little bit. So I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be taking advantage of that secondary for sure.
I just redid the math. Math wasn't my specialty. 31-26. gets it done with the Packers cover of the
There you
4.5
go.
points.
We'll
All
take
right,
it.
now I know you've got NBA. Aton wanted me to roll out a couple of his plays as well, because he might be doing TV and selling light bulbs, but he's always thinking about his plays.
Oh,
And
yeah.
let's see. Here he goes. He says he likes TCU. He threw in a TCU plus 13.5, and he's risking 2.36 units on this because they're minus 118. So he's taking TCU plus the 13.5 in the championship game on Monday night. And he's also got the New Jersey Devils on Frozen Pond tonight in hockey. We don't give out too many hockey plays, but I know you've got NBA. He's got Julius Randle.
Okay. Going up against the
Over
Spurs
in
tonight.
rebounds against the Spurs, and Tyler Hero over in threes tonight.
I
with the
love
Heat
both
game.
of those. Honestly, those are both two guys who have been on hot streaks and have been the ones carrying their teams as of late. Julius Randle is actually, I came in the start of the season, the first 3 weeks, and I truthfully was looking for him to be off of the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
As a fan of the team, he was absolutely atrocious, turning the ball over, going into these isolation possessions that would just absolutely stall the offense, and it was all bad for Julius Randle. Since then, he's bounced back. Him and Jalen Brunson have gotten some chemistry. He's allowed Brunson to run the offense and be the point guard that he was designed to be. And so I really like Randle to grab those boards tonight against a team like the Spurs who don't really have bigs like that. They go with a lot of 3 power forward lineups. So I really like that one for sure. My NBA pick tonight, I'm rolling with the Orlando Magic going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder are on a back-to-back. We're just in Oklahoma City playing the Boston Celtics last night. And beat them.
Yeah.
An impressive win, putting up 150 points, and then they're traveling all the way down to Orlando tonight. So I think they're going to be a little bit gassed between the travel tax and the game last night. So at minus 126, I really like the value of this. I think it could have easily been a minus 200 play.
Wow, for Orlando.
Yeah, the Orlando Magic. Yeah, so I'm taking them at home, and then I'm taking the Cleveland Cavaliers minus 5. Donovan Mitchell the other night had convinced me entirely. I mean, he is enough
71?
single-handedly 71 points, 55 in the second half.
It was an overtime game, but still 71 points in 60 minutes of basketball.
Yeah, I mean, he couldn't miss. Truthfully, he was walking down the floor. He would just chuck it up and just start smiling because he knew it was going in. So I'm taking them to cover the minus 5 tonight against the Phoenix Suns. And this not only comes because Cleveland's been playing good basketball, but the Suns are also atrocious. They can't defend anything. They just got blown out by the Knicks. About 2 days ago, they were down 35 points at one point. So the Suns have nothing going without Devin Booker. They have no defensive identity. DeAndre Ayton can't find himself as a basketball player anymore. He was even out in MSG before the game shooting half-court granny-style shots. Instead of warming up or doing
granny style, what is
granny
that?
Style. Oh, you never seen where you take it and you just chuck it between your legs?
Oh, underhand.
Give it one of those. Yeah, a nice double underhand from half. Yeah,
that's
granny
Rick
style.
Barry style, man. Rick Barry used to shoot free throws like that back in the 70s.
Yeah, so he was going Rick Barry half court warm-up shots and then proceeded to come out and drop 5 rebounds in a 35-point loss. So just really, really tough scene for the Suns right now. So I'm rolling with the minus 5 for the Cavaliers.
Beautiful. Love it. I can't believe how quickly the Suns have fallen.
Yeah, their fall from grace, especially with Chris Paul. He is just not what he used to be, and he's getting exposed lately as not the guy anymore, especially on the defensive end. They can't guard anything.
All right, that'll wrap it up for a Wednesday edition of Philly Voice Sports Bets. I think we gave you a whole ton to chew on, and we'll be back on Friday along with Aton for some more stuff for this big weekend of sports.